Freedom! Welcome back and thank you for continuing to view. Once again, I'm Chiropractor Howie. I wanted to share an experience that I had several years ago. I was attending a chiropractic event and I was browsing through the vendors section checking out the state of chiropractic, because you can get a good gauge of what's going on in the profession based on the wares that are being sold. One of the vendors had a banner that read, "Chiropractic is not a treatment, it's a lifestyle." Now that's a message I can get behind. After all, virtually every chiropractor I've ever asked over the years want to get checked and check their own family once a week on a lifetime basis. Not as a treatment, but to help the body to function at its highest potential by being free of vertebral subluxation. However, as I started looking at the vendors' posters, I saw a huge discrepancy between the banner's message and what I was seeing on the other marketing material. One such piece stated that chiropractic was effective for earaches in bold letters. I questioned the vendor on the incongruency, and the reply was, "We have to meet people where they're at," and continued to explain that if you keep reading, it explains how chiropractic helps with earaches. Now at first, that thought makes sense, but if we meet people where they're at, we are no longer offering people chiropractic care. We are now offering them medical care. All the meeting people where they're at never got us as chiropractors to understand that chiropractic is about lifetime care, not addressing some condition or complaint. In this episode, I'd like to explore how meeting people where they're at has limited our reach as chiropractors, and explore ideas of how to shift the paradigm of thinking in our offices, communities, and in the world. The revolutionaries of the past didn't accomplish what they did by meeting people where they're at. Instead, they moved people to where they were. If Henry Ford had given the people of his time what they wanted, he would have given them faster horses. Instead, he revolutionized the concept of transportation and its production, thus giving every individual the opportunity to have an automobile. Steve Jobs gave people more than just technology with Apple. He wanted people to think different, so he gave every individual the opportunity to have a personal computer, so that it would give them the opportunity to think different. I've heard chiropractors standing behind the pulpit professing that we need to be seeing every man, woman, and child from womb to the tomb for over 20 years now. Now, if you were the God of gods and heard this, you'd probably think to yourself, now that's a great mission that I can get behind. However, upon further investigation, you notice that the chiropractors aren't even giving the people they are professing to serve the same care that they and their own families receive week after week, year after year, decade after decade. Instead of just professing it, how do we really accomplish that? It's not going to happen by bringing people in by using testimonials and ads that promise to fix XYZ. After all, it never led me to lifetime care, and I'm guessing it never did for you and your own family. It wasn't until many of us heard the truth while in chiropractic school. So why do we, as a profession, believe that those things are going to get more people under lifetime care? Did the dentist meet people where they're at, or did they educate people on the importance of performing dental hygiene on a lifetime basis? The education is of the utmost importance. It's what led us to the truth of chiropractic. How has meeting people where they're at made a difference in how people view chiropractic? After all, chiropractors have been doing that since the beginning with Dee Dee and BJ's idea of getting sick people well. Chiropractic has been around for over 126 years, and its very idea has changed and continues to change the way people view the world and themselves. Yet, chiropractic continues to serve a very small portion of today's society. The first and foremost problem with meeting people where they're at is that we lose our identity as a profession. The chiropractic adjustment and the very reason that we perform the adjustment as a betterment to life expression would be at jeopardy of being lost and relegated only as a treatment for musculoskeletal conditions. This would be a great loss to all of humanity. For utilizing chiropractic care only as a treatment instead of as a lifestyle, just as virtually every chiropractor uses it for themselves and their family, our communities would not get the frequency of care that they and their families need in today's stressful world. If lifetime care was not an option and chiropractic care was only used as a treatment, then the checking and adjusting the children would eventually no longer be an option, because children do not typically have musculoskeletal conditions. Bottom line, we need to distinguish ourselves or we will end up extinguishing ourselves, because if the profession continues to meet people where they're at, nothing will change and our profession will never be sustainable, and it will eventually be assimilated by medicine. Now, to illustrate how meeting people where they're at is a barrier to lifetime care, I have a friend that's a public speaking coach. He teaches chiropractors, and I constantly try to get him to be a chiropractor. After all, chiropractic is about communication, and he's one of the best. He'd have one of the largest chiropractic practices in the world and probably teach all of us how to serve the masses because his understanding of chiropractic would increase if he pursued a career as a chiropractor. Unfortunately, the majority of the chiropractors he coaches are more interested in figuring out how to sell their 3-month treatment plans for $6,000 instead of trying to sell people on lifetime care. Anyways, back to my point. He was telling us how he was coaching a chiropractor to improve the closings during the chiropractor's report of findings. Over time, the chiropractor asked the coach why he hadn't asked to be under care. After all, he'd sat through hundreds of reported findings. During the break, I explained to the coach why he hadn't considered care at the time that he was asked that question. The reason was that out of all those hundreds of conditions that the chiropractor was treating, none of them pertained to him or his family. Therefore, why would he think he or his family needed chiropractic care? Because he didn't have any of the conditions that chiropractor was treating. Now, removing the barriers that are keeping people from receiving lifetime care is critical. The most important and most difficult barrier is changing their paradigm of outside-in thinking that most people come into our practices with. As one of my mentors, Joe Donofrio, always says, the orientation is the most important thing we do. Because without the education that we receive while going through chiropractic school, many of us would not be getting checked and checking our families on a lifetime basis. Now, with that idea in mind, how do we expect the people coming in our offices to understand the value of lifetime care without the education of its importance? We must constantly be educating not only those coming into our practices, but those outside of our practices by getting out into our communities and educating. Now that I brought up Joe D., I want to share a valuable lesson I learned from him many years ago. Never accept a walk-in as a new client. If they do happen to walk in, make sure to schedule them at least an hour and a half to 2 hours later. If you accept them as a walk-in, you'll be accepting them on their terms rather than on chiropractic terms. Now, I'd like to share a story to put this into a better perspective. The Wednesday before Joe shared this valuable lesson with me, an elderly woman came in with her granddaughter who had been in before. She was not in the best mood because she'd just been denied getting another spinal block at the pain management clinic. So her granddaughter walked her into my office. Now, before Joe's lesson, I was always happy to welcome a walk-in because I want to serve and educate everyone on the importance of making chiropractic a habit. Anyways, I tried to go through the consultation with her, but she constantly kept interrupting me, telling me she didn't care about the history of chiropractic and just wanted me to fix her. Many times I wanted to tell her just to get the hell out of my office. But this message of chiropractic truth is bigger than me. So I kept trying to continue until she finally got up from her chair in a huff and shuffled her way out of the office. This incident may not have happened if I had known and understood why you shouldn't accept walk-ins. Thankfully, I listened because I was tested on Monday following Joe's advice. The first person to walk in through my doors was a walk-in. He was visibly shaking and told me he had had a bad experience with a chiropractor in the past. I told him he'd have to come back in an hour and a half. When he returned, his whole demeanor was different, and I can safely say that he went the month and continued care until he moved away from the area. I feel that things would have been different if I'd taken him in as a walk-in. The orientation is the most important thing we do because people just don't know what we have to offer, and unfortunately, the majority of the profession isn't telling them because the vast majority of the profession doesn't work for the people that they claim that they serve. They work for medical insurance companies. Now, to put this in perspective, for well over 5 years now, I've been asking new people that come into my office as part of the consultation, what is your understanding of chiropractic? Truly, the answers are pathetic at best. You'd think that they'd be saying something about we're good at treating neck and back pain, but they don't even understand that chiropractic is even about that. And as a profession, we sold our souls to provide chiropractic as a treatment for neck and back pain with the acceptance of medical insurance. Steve Jobs said, you can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give that to them. By the time you get it built, they'll want something new. So don't cater to their wants. Provide them with a service they didn't even know that they needed until coming into your practice. In my office, I always strive to get the people entering my office to grasp the concept that we understand as chiropractors. With this understanding that many of us gain while at school from a book on the philosophy of chiropractic, a mentor, a speaker, or some other stroke of luck, we would not have gained the understanding and importance of getting our own spines checked and checking our own family spines week after week, year after year, decade after decade on a lifetime basis. So I feel it's important to expose those coming into my office to those very concepts that change my perception of where life comes from through our understanding of the philosophy of chiropractic. Now, before I move on, I will say there is one area that I do meet people where they're at, and that's by offering a per visit fee. Some could argue that offering a per visit fee is a practice of medicine at best, because a single visit can't be anything more than a treatment. I would agree with this argument. However, I feel so strongly that our message is so important that I'm willing to meet people where they're at on this issue. Because I've had people come into my office, had no clue what chiropractic was, and had intended to go just the visit. But after the consultation, they have been with me now for 10 years plus, getting their own spines checked weekly. Now, the next barrier that needs to be addressed is to make lifetime care affordable, so people can easily implement chiropractic care into their life, just like paying a monthly utility bill. The exact amount that makes care affordable would depend on the cost of living in the particular community that you live in. We'll get into more detail on that subject in a future video. Now, another important barrier that needs to be removed is to make office visits convenient so people can implement chiropractic in today's busy lifestyle. In my practice, after the initial free consultation, there are no appointments and people are usually in and out of the office in about 5 minutes. Of course, this really depends on how long it takes you to check a spine. It typically takes me between 1 to 2 minutes to locate, analyze, and help the body correct vertebral subluxation. Now that you've educated them on the why they should be getting their spines checked on a lifetime basis and created a want for them and their own families, now you have to make it accessible for them and their family and make it affordable for them to be able to utilize on a lifetime basis. I want to relate what I've said with a quote by Henry Ford. There are always enough people willing and anxious to buy, provided you supply what they want at the proper price. I understand when it comes to practice, you have a choice. However, here's something to think about. If you continue to meet people where they're at, you'll never have a sustainable practice. Imagine if you made the paradigm shift and began to educate every single person who comes into your practice and began to serve them on a lifetime basis, just as you do for yourself and your family. Would that make your practice life more enjoyable? I want you to consider that right now is the perfect time for chiropractors to be professing the truth of chiropractic. There's this idea of mass formation psychosis. When society becomes disconnected from each other and has overwhelming anxiety because things don't make sense, then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events. And this focus is on one small point, just like hypnosis. They literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere by that person or the series of events. It doesn't matter whether they have been lied to or told the truth. In Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, he warns of this very thing. He claims that things would get so overwhelming and so stressful that people would just defer to an authority rather than use any of their energy or reasoning to find a solution. Have you noticed that the experts have changed the science in the last few years? And I think it's been done due to this mass formation psychosis they are using to manipulate and control the people. Just recently, the childhood developmental milestones have been moved back or delayed by the experts. How can these milestones be moved back? Makes no sense. They have changed the science of herd immunity. Now the science states that the only way you can acquire herd immunity is through a vaccine, whereas originally vaccine theory was based off naturally occurring herd immunity. That's just to name a few examples. There are plenty more. Now what this means to you is that you can use this to your advantage by changing people's paradigm of thinking. I believe that this is another reason why my practice has grown and thrived over the last few years, because I've always tried to influence and change people's understanding of what chiropractic is. Therefore, I've been doing this unwittingly. So now I'm taking this to you, my viewers. Now I want to share another quote by Steve Jobs. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. So don't get trapped in the dogma of getting sick people well, which is medical thinking. Get people to think differently, to think chiropractically. In closing, if you want to continue this idea of meeting people where they're at today, I'd like to suggest that you approach it in a different way. Many of the people today are looking for a higher quality of life. If you doubt me, look around your own community. The idea of a higher quality of life has permeated the culture. The amount of people eating organic foods is higher than it's ever been. People are looking for establishments that serve clean eating. People are exercising more than ever. Our profession fits right into the sustainable model idea that many of the people in today's society are moving towards. As Henry Ford said, the highest use of capital is not to make more money, but to make more money, do more for the betterment of life. I can't think of anything other than lifetime chiropractic care that would increase a person's betterment of life. So start leading people where we're at and create a revolution in your community. For the truth of what chiropractic has to offer our communities has potential to change the world. Only if you have the courage to lead people where we're at. And with that courage comes freedom!